Hi, I'm Dylan with Halogen Systems, and today we're going to go through how to restore factory defaults, how to and use the long menu options, as well as talking about some maintenance and diagnostics abilities within the display screen. So first, I'm going to show how to restore calibrations to factory defaults. Factory defaults are what we calibrated here in our Reno facility. We use an advanced flow-through system where we're able to change water conditions, and we do a multi-point calibration and quality check to calibrate each individual sensor for temperature, pH, conductivity, ORP, as well as chlorine, of course. And if you're in the field and you do a calibration when you're not quite ready, if you weren't sure if that calibration stored correctly, or you're getting really erratic and strange values, the first troubleshooting step to do is going to be to restore to factory defaults. And that's going to go back to what we calibrated here in the factory, and it's a good fresh start for the sensor. Each calibration is specific to the sensor. It's not just a standard default calibration. Rather, it's a specific calibration that we did here. So it'll still be accurate, and you might just need to redo whatever points you might have done that are specific to your system and water conditions. So the first thing that we need to do is go to Menu, go to Calibration, and then right here at the bottom, we're going to see Cal Defaults. We're going to select that. We're going to set to defaults, and we're going to say, are you sure? Yes. When we send this, it's going to restart both the display and the sensor. This will also clear any errors if you have, say, an error 16 from a bad pH calibration or an error 17 for a bad slope calibration. Those errors are going to remain until you restore to factory defaults and rewrite that calibration value. So this is very important for clearing error 16, error 17, and error 13. We'll go through the startup sequence, and then the sensor is going to start operating normally. And if you had those errors before, those errors should be gone now. So that is restore calibrations to factory defaults. The next thing that we're going to cover is some of the more long menu functionalities that we have. As you can see here, we are in the short menu right now because there is no L in the right-hand corner of the screen. And you see that we only have 3 menu options. We also have just pH and chlorine calibration ability here, and we only have single point pH calibration here. And then our configuration here is going to be a little bit more limited and only have 4 to 20 milliamp options and not 4 to 20 calibration. So when we activate the long menu, holding select and right arrow for 2 seconds, our long menu is going to be activated, and you can see we have some additional options here. The first additional option that we're going to have is we're going to be able to calibrate every single one of our individual parameters. So that's chlorine, conductivity, pH, temperature, and ORP. We'll also be able to do 2 additional options for pH calibration, and that's going to be 2-point buffer calibration, which I cover in another video, and then manual pH entry. If our pH probe goes bad and you're getting erroneous values, you can use the manual pH to put in what your system is expecting in pH, and we can apply a pH compensation to that value. The next additional menu that's in here is going to be 4 to 20 milliamp calibration, and this is going to allow us to calibrate our 4 to 20 outputs 1 through 4. And what we're going to be calibrating here is the minimum 4 milliamp output value to align that with what your PLC is seeing, as well as calibrating our maximum 20 milliamp DAC value. If you're noticing that our display value is showing like chlorine as 0.05, but your PLC is seeing it as 0.07, and you want to narrow that gap, you might need to use the 4 to 20 calibration to tighten that up a little bit. And you can also do that using a process clamp meter. However, I recommend doing it just looking at what your HMI is reading and then comparing that to our display and then adjusting these values until you're able to have them match. The next additional menu that we have is the maintenance menu. We have a couple options here. The first one is stop. The stop command allows us to stop the motor. And we have two options when we stop the motor. If this sensor is communicating over Modbus or 4 to 20 with a PLC system and you want to do some troubleshooting without changing the reported chlorine values, you can press stop hold values, and what that's going to do is maintain our 4 to 20 milliamp output to whatever we did when we stopped the motor. The next thing would be to stop and clear values, and that's going to put everything to 0. That way your system knows that this sensor is offline. So we'll go ahead and hit stop and hold values, and you can hear our motor stop here. This is useful for if you're doing pH calibration, if you're doing any sort of maintenance but you don't want to cut power to the display. Say you want to replace wear parts, you can hit the stop command, replace all of your wear parts, put them back, and then come back here. And we'll go back to the menu here. And we can go to maintenance. And the first thing up here, it's going to say resume. And that's going to start our sensor motor again. And it's also going to initiate a priming sequence. Doing that command is also a good way to help clear air bubbles as well. The next thing we have here is the replace pH sensor command. And basically what that's going to do is reset our pH calibration back to factory defaults, which is going to be an offset of 0 and a pH slope of 59.2. It's a good starting point for initiating a pH calibration. You can hit yes, and that will reset those, both the hours and the pH 0 and slope. Next thing is the long menu. This operates the same way as holding select and right arrow, and that will disable the long menu. The next thing is just to replace wear parts, and what that's going to do is just reset our hours so that you can track how many hours you have on those specific wear parts. It's a good way to determine your wear rate and keep track of when the last time you replaced the wear parts was. And all the way down at the bottom, we have our restart system command, which I covered in some of our diagnostics videos earlier. It's going to hard reset the sensor as well as the display. So if you're having any errors, you want to clear errors, that's also another good way to do that. And then the last long menu place is the diagnostics menu. And this has three options. We can manually set pH, conductivity, and chlorine values here. This is an advanced function that maybe our technical support team might walk you through. We don't expect you to be able to use this right off the bat. However, if you want to manually set to a value that you have saved previously, you can do that using this menu. The next thing is we have logs, and you can look and you can view sensor logs. We can hold up to 200 measurement options, and you can erase periodically. We overwrite based on the newest, and then everything after the 200 measurements will be overwritten as we get new sensor measurements. And then the last one here is errors. This will show us our active errors as well as give us the clear errors command. So if you are seeing some errors here, you can send that command, and it's going to reset our sensor, initiate a priming sequence, and clear any active errors. So those are some of the advanced long menu diagnostics and maintenance features. If you guys have any additional questions regarding the usage and the functionality of some of our more advanced features, feel free to reach out to us at tech@halogensys.com. And we look forward to hearing from you.